Welcome back, everybody, to the Squatchers Lounge podcast. That's right. Here we are. Quarantine week. I don't know. Toilet paper's running low, and pretty soon we're going to be gluing an old sock to a stick and going Roman style, but we'll get through it one way or another. This week we're talking part 2 of the Sylvanic Bigfoot hoax of Todd Standings with Winky. That's right. Last time we talked about Blinky. This time we're talking about Winky. That's right. The biggest complaint about the last one was that its eyes didn't move at all. Well, he solved it this time, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Hey, really, really good news. We did finally hear from the great Todd Standings, the great Dean Cooper. Dean is in the hospital with some complications, but we did hear from him. He is alive. He is recovering. He's going to have a little bit of rehab, and he will be back at home safe and sound before too long. So for those of you that were concerned and worried about us and giving good karma, keep sending him good karma. He's going to need it, but for sure, he is alive and well, and we've heard from his wife a couple of times this week. Dean, if you're out there watching, buddy, Barahuta Mila Kunis. That's right. Any of you that have been in an after hangout might get that reference. Okay, folks, we are talking about it this week. That's right. The scariest thing on the planet is Winky, Blinky, and Nod. We'll get to Nod on another night, but tonight we're talking about Winky. What can we start out with this particular footage? Now, if you know anything about this footage, it comes again from the Todd Standings and the Sylvanic Bigfoot documentary that he wouldn't release to anybody. He was charging some $3.95 on a website somewhere if you wanted to watch it once upon a time. And it included pictures of video of the Century Bigfoot that would stand up and scooch back down again. The running Bigfoot that ran up a hill. I believe if you take that footage and you run it backwards, the Bigfoot actually jumps down the hill. But hey, there was last time's subject matter of, is that Michael Jackson? With the wild hair and the glass eyes and just the hair lip. Yeah, we're not exactly sure who does cleft lip repairs for Bigfoots, but this one doesn't have the cleft lip. Imagine that. Although it does have some kind of weird vestigial nose that the other one did not have. Some kind of nose wrinkle going on here. Some additions to the mold. We'd have to say they actually put in eyelids this time. The last subject had absolutely no eyelids in it whatsoever. But this one in particular, this one's got a little bit of lower eyelid in it. A lot of hair. I mean, a lot of hairs compared to the other one that had such a flat face to it. Here, as a matter of fact, we can always do this. We Google images. They're the ones responsible for putting the images out there, not me. Let's see here. Standing Bigfoot. We'll take a look at it here. We'll go for example. This particular one here. There's absolutely no hair in the face. There's no hair on the forehead. There's no hair on the nose. There's no hair on the cheeks. There's absolutely no hair anywhere around the lips. But then when we look over at Winky, oh, look at those eyes. By the way, those are digitally enhanced eyes from the introduction to the video. If you go and we actually look at the footage itself, like this one, those eyes are not glowing as such. Interesting, to say the least, seeing as how those are the exact same pictures. You see that? Isn't that interesting? Glowing eyes, non-glowing eyes. You be the judge. But when comparing these types of creatures side by side, I wouldn't even know if that was a Bigfoot or is this a Bigfoot. When we're comparing this one to the first one, I'm hoping to find there's the Michael Jackson picture. That's a little bit better picture of him, and we can compare it down below. The noses are completely different. The mouth structure is completely different. The eye structure is completely different. Not only just the eye structure, but the eyes themselves are to a point that they are of a completely different species, one versus the other. I mean, They're both taxidermied eyes. They're both definitely not real, but there are different levels of those eyes, that you can get glass eyes versus a realistic eye or something that's been painted on and been worked on. But in this particular case, the part of this that doesn't work out very well. Let's see here. See if we can get it. This will have it. Oh wow, isn't that great? No one's graduating from high school this year, so you can thank the coronavirus for that. I'm looking for the video that comes in with this particular footage, and this is the intro to the Sylvanic Bigfoot. It's gonna now be revealed. I'm just not finding what I'm looking for. And I don't want to play the whole thing because that's kind of a copyright thing. So we won't do that. But speaking of which, the entire story that goes along with this particular picture, definitely, again, leaves something to be desired of realism. The video footage of it, they move again and again and again. Take frame after frame after frame of it. You get things like this where blurry, it's a different view of it. You get another view, he moves closer to it, but he's not quite able to focus in on the face that he wants to. So he goes and he makes another move and still can't quite get it to be blurred in. But through all of these moves and all of these pictures, what doesn't move is this animal's face. Not the nose, not the position of the mouth, not the position of the nose scrunch, not the eyebrows, if you can pick them out of that hair-covered head. Nothing in this animal's facial expression moves until he finally gets to this aspect, sits on it for a good 10 seconds, and then we see the animal wink. One time, wink. Now, there were bugs flying around it. There were bugs landing on it. And this creature never once reached up with its hand and swatted any of this away. It never turned and looked behind it. It never looked beside it. The eyes didn't scan anywhere around. The only thing that ever happened in this entire video was Bigfoot gave us a wink. And speaking of giving us a wink and finding out that Quasi Dean was still alive, this is my family after the 3 weeks of being in quarantine. We can't get to the barber and my beard trimmers have broken. So we'll see what happens when quarantine is lifted. But let's give the Quasi theory of the week, of course, going for Dean, give him a little bit of good karma while he's healing up in the hospital with one of his favorites. X marks the Quasi. And now, Quasi theories from a quasi scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
X marks the spot. Last year, for the Squatchers Lounge podcast that was on Ash Wednesday, I explained why Easter is a movable holiday and how to figure out when it will occur. I quote myself. The reason is obvious. It is always on the first Sunday after the first full moon after the first day of spring. I also pointed out that since the beginning of spring and the beginning of fall are called the equinoxes, the length of day and night being equal on those days, and that the path of the solar ecliptic and the celestial equator make an X where they cross on the day of an equinox. I also explained that most of the pagan religions at the time had a spring fertility festival that was held around the spring equinox, and that nearly all had a god who was the son of a virgin goddess, whose father was the highest god in the local pantheon. Pagan, or paganus in Latin, means a rustic person, a person of little understanding, a hillbilly. These various sons of God, a few of which I listed in my Quasi for last Christmas, entitled A Yuletide Rant, all died for the sake of their followers and subsequently resurrected. 3 days later was the popular timing. A whole lot of them were crucified, but the time of the slaying of the god was always on or near the spring equinox. So what is the point of crucifixion on that big cross in the sky? Why nail your god up there? The association of the son of the greatest god with the sun is a pretty obvious metaphor. But why would these ancient peoples, who were pretty damned advanced, considering building pyramids, aqueducts, roads, measuring the distance from the earth to the moon, the diameter and circumference of the earth, etc., why would they nail a god to the sky? Here's the quasi part. Behind all those pantheons, beyond the highest god, there was a limitless source of being, unformed, what Socrates called the good, the beautiful, the one without number. Not one without number in the sense of countless, but, since it is beyond any limit, cannot be described by numbers. Now, when that source of all things, called the Godhead by some Christian metaphysicians, and the Brahman by Hindus, decided, as the Hindu Vedas report, one am I, let me be many, it had to limit itself, make itself into a point, so to speak, so that there could be one and then many. You could say that it nailed itself to a cross so that its blood might become the life of the universe. But that's what the pagans said, and what do they know? You may read the text of this on my blog at bydean.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
Well, there you have it, folks. Bydean.com. That's right. All right. And now, because I was an idiot, let's try this again. I didn't share any of that with you because I, of course, brought it up to the wrong screen. So we'll do it this way now, and you guys should be able to see what it is that I'm talking about. Here, this is what I was talking about, the altered eyeballs of the Sasquatch. Everybody's like, oh, look at the picture of that. That's a living creature. Except for that's the actual unadulterated picture. Of course, the other one was altered in such a way to make it look like it had live glowing eyes, but it does not. But in comparison over to what I was talking about, let's try this again. There is the Michael Jackson Bigfoot. Around his face, there is absolutely no hair. There's no hair over his nose, nothing around his mouth, not around his eyes. And as we said, there's no eye. There's absolutely no eyelids over the top of this creature's eyes whatsoever. But if we go and we look at Winky and we get a good look at him, now all of a sudden, this looks like something completely different. I mean, this as much as chimpanzee and gorilla look different. Not so much that chimpanzee versus chimpanzee different, or chimpanzee even versus Billy Ape or bonobo, or bonobo, as some people call it, whatever you want to call it, however you want to pronounce it. The differences between the two of those creatures is definitely unlike anything I have seen. Now, we talked last time, Michael Jackson, cleft lip repair, the weird, strange, very human-like nose, the dead glass eyeballs that are in this one. When we take a look at this one here, we've got such magnificently groomed hair. I mean, he's like the gangster of Bigfoot. I want to name him like Don Corleone. Wait, what did you call me? Bigfoot. Well, my name's Daryl. Sorry, Daryl. That's right. On the track of Daryl. I saw that, Jamie Wayne. That was funny. We've just got so many differences in the fact that, the differences between those two supposedly captured images of Sasquatch aren't even related to each other. And as we talked about the last time, if I took the eyeballs of a white-tailed deer and I laid them on the table, and I took the eyes of a black-tailed deer and I laid them on the table and asked you to compare them, you'd tell me that they were from the same animal. You wouldn't be able to tell that there's a difference between them at all. But that's not the case here. These are some kind of solid, I don't know. These are glass. We've established that. But, in these particular eyeballs, they are of a different type of species. As much as gorilla eyes don't look like human eyes, this Bigfoot's eyes don't look like this Bigfoot eyes. And that becomes a problem because genetically, down to the DNA, they're the same animal, supposedly. And if that's the case, then structurally, you shouldn't be able to tell the difference. As grandiose as there is in the eyeball differences between this guy here and this guy here. Now, throughout the entire video of this, and I can't find the one that I wanted to play, Todd positions himself several times. First, he gets this image of the Sasquatch and can't quite get it into view the way he wants it. He can't quite get it to focus, so he moves again. And again, he can't quite get it to focus through the trees, so he moves once again. Still hasn't quite gotten it to focus the way he wants, so he moves again. Still, no, that's definitely not going to do it. That's definitely not going to do it. That's definitely not going to do it. But as I was talking about before, as we go through each one of these pictures, if you look solidly at the mouth area, that crimson grissom, whatever that is, every single picture you look at, the mouth is exactly the same. The nose is exactly the same. The eyes are in the exact same place until he finally gets it right where he wants it in focus, waits on it for 10 seconds, and then it winks. I mean, almost like, little Bow Wow did in Tokyo Drift when he gets in the elevator. I mean, it's almost like an obvious nod that this Bigfoot's going to wink at you. And it gets, animals don't act that way. That's most of the problem with this particular piece of what's called evidence. It doesn't move. It doesn't turn its head. It doesn't twist. It doesn't scratch its nose. It doesn't pick a hand up and put it on the branch and move it away so it can see better. Supposedly, he disappeared from this animal's sight several times while he repositioned to take more and more video of it, and this creature didn't reposition itself to see him. Now, nothing about that says hide and seek champion of the world. None of it. Just none of it. And unfortunately, there's still a whole crap ton of sycophantic morons out there that just love this guy. They just absolutely love this guy and swear like his videos are never to be questioned in ever, simply because he has the support of Dr. Don Jeffrey Meldrum. Yeah, that's part of the problem, too, as we've talked about in the past. So let's take a short break here for a moment and say hello to our guests out there that are hanging out in the live hangout. Yes, I did almost forget that again this week, and that would have been horrible. So let's start at the top here. Hello there, Miss Natalie Smith. How you doing? Tim McCune is in the house with us as well. Miss Bella Allegria is there with us as well. Ken the Viking, how you doing there, pal? Glad you're hanging out with us. Frank G in the house. Oh man, did you see that all over my microphone as usual? Dun, 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 dun. Steve, man, 436. What's up, man? Is that your zip code, or you live on 436 in Florida? Spike Jeff, how you doing, my man? There's the brown dwarf. Dude, that guy is crazy. Hey, there he is, the Sean Kelly. Hello, pal. Glad you made it back from your errands. Yeah, that's right. The Reverend did procreate one time in his life. It's kind of scary. The Squatch Man, BGFT's in the house. Roger Dupree, he's always in the place to be. That's right. Mr. Fang, 3 my threes are stuck tonight. Sorry, I got to get a better keyboard. Unknown Territory is in the house. Hello there. That's right. VMST 80, hello there. Bigfoot tried to rape you once. Well, that's Dr. Melba Ketchum's area. You should talk to her. She's complained about woken up sore between the crotch one time after seeing the Sasquatch. Gypsy Rhodes in the house. Dave Jackson's in the house. Jay Gird's in the house. Travis Bumpy's in the house. Travis Bumpy. You ought to be a country singer. If you're not, you should learn. I'd listen to Travis Bumpy. I really would. Let's see here. Moving on down the line here. Lance Windsor's in the house, the man from the Great White North. Aaron Duncan's in the house. There he is. Sure, his wife Mary's hanging out with him as well. We are still just kind of stuck in place. But man, I'm going somewhere May. I don't care. We are going somewhere. Whatever those dates are, we're going. I don't care if I got to camp on the side of the road in the back of my damn pickup bed trailer. I'd do it. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of this town. This is the last thing I ever do. That's right. I know. Who sung that? Let's keep it that way. Gone Trapping's in the house as well. There you go. Hello there, Gone Trapping. I want to move on down the line here, see who else. I don't want to miss just random numbers. Well, random numbers gets it done sometimes. All right, we'll make sure that we say hi to everybody. If I didn't say hi to you, I'm sorry. I missed your name. Didn't try to. Sometimes that does happen. You know, Dean Get Better, or your old pal Wes, I'm sure is out there listening, and Collier's Nightmares, he's out there listening to it as well. So, yeah. So we were talking about Blinky here, and the fact that Blinky doesn't blink. He winks at us. He gives us a good, I'll blink to yourself. I don't want to open my email. I want to go back over here and let y'all take a look at this. Booga. Now this dude, you know, he's nearly there. This is that shaman guy that ran around in North Carolina that tried to say that Bigfoot sightings were him. But you know, if you look at him, he's really not all that far off from old Winky himself. But the main issue that really kind of came up with this particular model was the fact when Falconer and Phil Poling put out their paper, and we discussed that on the last one. I'm not going to go through it again. It really comes down to the face mold nearly fits Todd Standing perfectly. It's very, very striking when you look at side-by-side comparisons of turning Todd's face into Blinky or into Winky at you, that it lines up in a way that is just kind of weird. Did he have his own face made for Winky? I don't know that he did. We'll be talking about this one here next week. This is the what they call the demon face, with yet another set of different types of eyes. So we'll see that again. But back to the topic at hand, Mr. Winky himself. The main issue becomes that the facial features never change, no matter what picture you see of this mannequin bust. I don't know. I mean, it looks like it goes down to the shoulder. I'm not really sure how low it really goes. Some of the footage does kind of show that it goes down. Like if you see this one here, you know, you can see that there's a shoulder line that goes along with it. But it is definitely, I mean, it could be on a pole and like just stuck into the ground back there. They could have done a lot of things with it to make it look like it moved around. But just lazily, all they did was just take video after video after video of it in the exact same positions. The mouth never changes. The nose never changes. The eye positions never change. It never squints. It never, it just doesn't do anything but look like Todd Standing. I mean, that's really what I've got about. That's what I've got for it. I mean, that's really all it looks like. It looks like Todd Standing in some hair. Yeah, you know, Goonie Goo Goo. We shaved him down and we taught him to speak, and we married her off to Gus, and him and his kids. Him and his kids can catch fish with their teeth. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I was checking back through the list here to make sure that I didn't miss anybody in the list, and it looks like we are all good. So this, you know, this marks up, you know, like hoax number 5 for Todd Standing. By the way, this isn't the second one. He disappeared on an adventure and came walking out right before they were about to start a search for him. There's that weird video where he's screaming at the flares at night, but you can't see anything on video. A bunch of the new stuff in his new video is cleverly done, but still, hoaxing and fabricating just keeps going all the same way. It's just kind of strange that the sycophants out there will just stick to it, and no matter what you do, there you are. So no matter where you are, there you is. And that's pretty much where we are tonight with the Sylvanic Bigfoot 2 Hoaxing Exposed. I do have a Bigfoot campfire story for you tonight. It is the third part in the family with Fox the Bigfoot. This one's kind of interesting, showing some actual supposed behavioral things between the family of Bigfoot. It was quite interesting, the story that I read that influenced this particular Bigfoot campfire story. So tonight, give it a listen, and we will see you next week right here, same time, same bad channel, right here at the Squatchers Lounge podcast. We'll see you then. Thanks for being here, and may the Squatch be with you. You guys hear that? I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that's a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. When we last saw from Fox the Bigfoot, we had a slightly scary run-in while playing hide and seek with our subject, young Jenny Carter. Some years have passed since we last encountered the Bigfoot on the farm, but that just led to more fantastic stories. Jenny's father, Dave, was now in his twilight, and Jenny was about to graduate from high school when a chance encounter with Fox led to an amazing revelation. Well, I'd been working out behind the barn on the old tractor when I heard some kind of strange calls from an animal I hadn't heard before. It sounded like the call of our Bigfoot visitor, Fox, who has roamed this area near our farm since he was just a small thing. Well, I dropped what I was doing and wandered out onto the game trail for a walk. Well, I had managed to find myself right back at the spot near the creek where Fox and Jenny had been playing hide and seek that very last time, when I had noticed across the creek a bit of movement in the distance. Seeing as it was late spring and the water wasn't freezing, I trudged across that cold creek water and slowly crept up on the animal. Son of a gun, it was a different Bigfoot than Fox. That was definite. It looked to be a female. She looked like Fox, but quite different in her own way. She was shaped slightly different, and there weren't any visible breasts, but somehow it seemed feminine. And I assumed that it was a she, and she looked kind of lost. Again, she called out, but in the middle, she must have caught my scent, and in an instant, she was gone. Well, I had met Jenny down by the lane where the bus let her off each day. I felt like a little kid once again, as I couldn't wait to tell her what I had seen. I sat there with the anticipation of a child on Christmas as I saw the old battered yellow school bus round the corner of our pothole-ridden lane. The brakes squealed as it came to a stop, and dust kicked up all around the angry tank as it came to a rest, and out stepped my daughter. She looked at me with a puzzled concern and asked if something was wrong. I had hidden my smile from her as to not give it away, but through the years, any time we had spotted Fox the Bigfoot, we had promised that we would take each other to that location straight away, and that was what we were off to do. We had stopped at the now weather-beaten white house and dropped her books off. Jenny reached through the flapping broken screen and just dropped them onto the floor, as she couldn't wait to see where it was that I had been taking her. You could smell the dogwood trees in bloom as the white flowers dangled everywhere and littered the ground in every direction. The snow on the mountain bushes were so thick this year that you couldn't even see through them. As we walked along the trail, we started naming off the bird calls we had heard as one of our favorite things to do. That was how I had recognized the strange new call, as living here nearly all my life, I knew each and every animal that wandered my lands. The tree canopy gave us a great cover as we approached the creek from a new direction, and that was when she had heard the call for the first time. It was the calling wail of that same new Bigfoot, and it came across the creek once more. Well, we crept into the creek and went upstream a bit so that we could get into the tree line unseen. Once we had the newest creature in sight, we simply sat down under a pine tree just out of sight, and we watched for a bit. She was big, at least 7 foot tall, covered in dark brown with a reddish tinge to the ends of it. Much like Fox, she had no hair on her face, chest, and hands, but her vocals were far different than his. She had no neck to speak of and a conical-shaped head with big eye openings. She bent at the back and her head went high in the air as she let out yet another wail, when she suddenly stopped, and we could all hear a response from a far different creature. Her call then changed somehow. It's hard to point a finger on it, but the cadence of the call became more warbled, and the frequency of the response call, too, was somehow more frequent and altered, as if trying to locate one another. Finally into view walks a very familiar sight. It was the one and only Fox the Bigfoot. It had been more than 2 years since we had last put eyes on Fox near the farm, but we hear him quite often. This was the first time we'd actually seen him. Wow, had he changed. Now he was huge, some 8 foot tall, very broad at the chest and thighs, yet slim at the waist. He had picked up a battle scar or two, one being directly over his left eye. It looked like either a bear or a cougar had gotten a clean swipe, but since he stood before us, we were sure who had won. The female slowly approached Fox as if this was her first time seeing him as well. Never having encountered this female before, we really had no clue as to where she had come from or if she was attached to another clan. But here she was, and she sure had eyes for Fox. He quickly came forward to meet her on all fours, sniffing fiercely in the air while grunting out what sounded like coos to us. She too gave off high hoots and chills as they rotated around each other, sniffing at each other from end to end. This was no ordinary meeting. It had just dawned on us. Spring was in the air, and we were witnessing a Bigfoot pairing. We had never seen Fox with any other Bigfoot before. This was a first for all of us, when all of a sudden we heard horn blasts from the house. The two creatures actually grabbed hands and quickly moved off out of sight. Then the horn again sounded from the house, and in an instant we could hear the creatures run off in what seemed to be the same direction, as if one were actually chasing the other. We gathered ourselves up and wandered our way back across the creek and into the yard from the trail. There stood mother and wife Sue with wide eyes, wondering just what was going on, as some 2 hours had actually passed. And since Jenny had never checked in with Mom in the house, once she discovered the books tossed onto the floor of the back porch, she became worried and honked for me to return. Once she saw that I had Jenny in tow, her look softened and she asked, "Another sighting of Fox?" It was nearly dinner time, so we all sat at the table and told Sue about the sighting and the encounter and the addition of the newest Bigfoot in the area. It was a couple of nights past before we had heard anything again. It was nearly 11 p.m. when Sue and I were awoken by the strangest choir of sounds. It seemed Fox and his new love were all in sync and belting out the Sasquatch love calls until the wee hours of the night. It went on for hours each night, the calling in unison over and over, and paused for a bit, only to return for the next act. Then just as nearly a week had passed, when we thought we could stand it no more, it all stopped again. Jenny and I had walked each day after school, revisiting the places we ran into Fox from time to time, but to no success. It seemed Fox and his new love had found somewhere else out of earshot to set up house. It would be several more years before they see Fox and his woman once more, but that's left for yet another story and another time. Until then, thanks for listening. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.